Hey, what's going on everybody, and warm welcome back to the Whiskey Cove. And on today's episode, this is part 2 of the Buffalo Trace tier list. Run the video. Alright then folks, welcome back. So yes, this is part 2 of a 2-part Buffalo Trace tier list special. If you haven't already seen part 1, go over to the YouTube homepage for the Whiskey Cove, which you can find by clicking our logo down below, and go and check out part 1 and then come back and watch part 2, because you do not want to miss that first part out there as well. So let's remind ourselves of the tiers that we will be doing. And that is going to be, so S will be the top tier. Then we have A, B, C, and D. So last time I kind of bunched all the benchmarks in together, and I know some of you folks commented that they would actually have liked to have seen them broken down a little bit more. So I had to go and get some new ones. So we're going to break some of those down into their own different categories instead of just lumping them all in together today. So what we have some of those benchmarks. We have the Wellers, we have some E.H. Taylors, and we also have Early Times Bottled in Bond tier list here today. So then for bottle number 1, then let's start with the benchmarks. So we're going to start with Benchmark Bonded. So it's been a while since I've tried some of these special releases, and like I said, I'd go and get some more ones for these. I think the Benchmark Bonded is okay. It's a little bit youthful in some parts, but you know, overall 50% ABV, it's not too bad. And for the money as well, it's great value for money. I would probably prefer Buffalo Trace, even though it's not bonded. I would probably prefer that over this. I'm going to put this in the C category, so last but one. So I think that's pretty fair for this bottle of whiskey. Next up, let's do the small batch. This is coming in at 45% ABV on 90 proof, so kind of much like the bonded. This is going in the C category. It's just okay. It's not good. It's not great, but it's just not just. With me, my baselines are I try to keep baselines for just good whiskey in the middle, which if you watch my ratings, I talk about that a lot for my whiskey reviews. So there's not, even though I'm putting this in the C category, it doesn't mean that's bad whiskey. It's just not good enough to get into that middle tier there. So there's the small batch. Next up, we have the Benchmark Single Barrel. So when we did, and this was one of the earliest videos I did for the Whiskey Cove, must be going back about 10 months ago, we did some alternatives, kind of like the Blanton's bourbon. We did a blind, and this was in there. And I felt that this whiskey did really well for itself, actually, considering the price tag of like $18. And lately on Facebook, I've been seeing a lot of people posting these specialty benchmarks, like $8 or $9, that a lot of stores are actually trying to mark them down and get them up for whatever reason. But however, I will put this in the B category, so right in the middle of the road there. I think this is really great value for money. Yes, it is a single barrel. There might be some differences between yours and mine. However, for this one I have right in front of me, I thought that it had some really nice Buffalo Trace style notes there as well, which surprised me because I didn't really get that from many of the other ones. But I did get from this one, I got some of that like Buffalo Trace cherry, some really nice oak backbone there as well. Just a really nice, pleasant single barrel to drink. So that's why that's going into the B category. Next up, we have the Benchmark Top Floor. So I would say this is probably my favorite out of the pick there. And for like $20, I'm gonna put this in the B category as well. We have one more, so I don't want to say where that's going, but this one for me is in the B category. If there was like a B plus category or an A minus category, this probably would have gone in it. However, I just felt that it just wasn't good enough to get into the A category. The top floor, they pulled the barrels from the top floor. What stopped this from me from getting into a higher category is that it's only 43%. So yes, you have some good flavor notes there, but I would just prefer a little bit more ABV, and that probably would have taken it into that A category. So that was Top Floor by Benchmark. And then the last benchmark, we have Benchmark Full Proof. Almost like a baby stag, if you like. The proof on this is 62.5%, so you are getting a lot of proof with this one. You're getting some deep cinnamon burnt barrel char notes. So much like the two we just seen, this is also going into the B category as well. I don't feel like any of these are just good enough to break that A, or definitely not S category, but for the value for money, it's just phenomenal whiskey, honestly. For the value for money, for like $15 to $22, $23, you get these whole set, or you get the whole set. You can kind of play around with them a lot. It's just a really fun and unique thing to have, especially for people just getting into whiskey. If I can recommend a set of whiskeys that'll cost you less than 120 bucks, the Benchmark series is probably the best at trying to get started with different whiskeys, different profiles, single barrels, bonded, top floor. and then they're full proof as well. It's all you need really. So that's going into the B category. So then next, let's do Early Times Bottled in Bond. Yes, we have been featuring this bottle on our channel for a lot lately. MSRP is around $20 to $25. It's become a little bit more findable since they switched over to the Sazerac bottle implant there. You're getting a litre for the price as well. For me, I'm gonna have to put this in the S category, which is what a compliment for this bourbon, right? You can't be any higher than that. You know, the only bottle from part one, spoiler alert, they got in was Stag Junior. So that really complements this bottle a lot. It's cheap, it's findable, and it's very tasty, and the nose on it is phenomenal. It keeps getting better and better every time I get into it. I can't say enough good things about this bottle of whiskey. If you haven't got one, you need to pick one up. S tier. So then with that being said, let's get into the E.H. Taylors and leave the Wellers off till last there. So then the first one, let's do E.H. Taylor Small Batch. What a whiskey, right? It is bonded, so 50% ABV or 100 proof. It's just not as findable as maybe the Early Times Bottled in Bond. And I don't want to particularly hold that against this too much. MSRP is about $40 to $50. It is a great bottle of whiskey. And probably as good as the Early Times, maybe a hair's better, but just kind of like for the findability, I'm gonna probably put it at A category, which is still really great. It maybe just be able, maybe on a different cake, could have broken the S category, but however, A category for this E.H. Taylor Small Batch. Great oak backbone, some beautiful vanilla and caramel notes. We just did a head-to-head of the E.H. Taylor single barrel, which we'll do next year, and all the E.H. Taylor lineup so far that I've had has just been great. If you have the chance to pick any up or MSRP, do not sleep on them whatsoever. Next up, we're gonna do, like I said, the E.H. Taylor single barrel. Much like any other single barrels, you're going to have some variations, but the ones I've tried, and even the store picks, have all been really great as well. This is as good as any really single barrel that I can think of. Yes, it lost to the John J. Bowman single barrel, but if you're able to find this, you're not going to be disappointed with it whatsoever. Yes, when it goes into like the store picks, it can get a little bit different there because people pick the barrels based upon their preferences, but just the regular single barrels seem to have a really great consistency between them. And I'm definitely putting this in the A category there as well. Not quite enough, like I said, to get into that S category, but for me, this is a really great whiskey, and this is going in the A category. So you might be thinking there are a bunch of the different E.H. Taylors, but for me, I haven't tried E.H. Taylor barrel proof, so I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to put it into a category because I can't realistically tell you exactly what it's like and how I rate it. Also as well, I haven't tried any of those crazy other E.H. Taylors as well. So we'll just be doing the rye here, and this will be the last one. The E.H. Taylor rye is a good whiskey, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely more of a bourbon drinker's whiskey, as you'll hear me say on this channel a bit. If you're someone who really likes bourbon, thinking about getting into rye, then this will probably be the whiskey for you if you have it. It has some of those Buffalo Trace style cherry, spice, oak notes, but then it also has a tiny little bit of rye spice. But for me, when I like to drink rye, I like it just to be very punchy as a rye, which is for me why I'm putting this into the B category. This is probably the hardest E.H. Taylor to find out of these three. And to be honest, it may or may not be worth the hunt. It just depends on how you like your ryes, I guess. But for me, the B category, so right in the middle of the road there on this E.H. Taylor rye. So then that leaves us with the Weller series here. So let's start at the bottom, so to speak. Let's go with Weller Special Reserve. It's not a bad wheated bourbon on its own. Yes, it can be a little bit tame and there's not too much going on there, but in terms of where it is on the budget of like Maker's Mark, regular and larceny, it does all right for itself in that category. So which is why I'm putting it on in the C category here. So not the bottom category, but it's just an okay whiskey. You get some of those grassy green notes like you normally get from a lot of Wellers, but there's just not enough of it. There's not much of a finish and it kind of falls away there. If you'd like to see more about Weller reviews or a Weller blind, go check out the channel as well, because those last few months we've been doing a lot with the whole Weller series there. Next up, and let's go with Weller 12. So I really like Weller 12. Yes, it is hard to find, much like all the rest of the Weller, so we don't need to talk about that. It has a beautiful oak and cherry note there, but it also has if you like a sweeter aged whiskey, this isn't going to be it, because you do get a nice bit of sweetness up front, and then it just tails off and you get a lot of like dry wood pine type notes there in the back end. I really like it. For me, this is going into the A category. I would put this in the A category. I like an older aged bourbon. I know a lot of people out there don't particularly like that palate. This is like 45%, so I felt like if it would be higher than that, it would just get too dry, which is probably good at why it sits at 45% ABV. So that's going into the A category. Next up, let's do Wild Antique 107. So this is a little bit of a higher proof. So this comes in at 53.5% or 107, well, 107, right? I get big, like juicy raspberry jam compote notes from this. I love this whiskey. I'm gonna put this into the S category. I can't say enough good things about this Weller. I love where the proof is at. I love those like jammy, fruity flavor profile that it has, and it also has a really nice oak backbone there as well. This is why this is going into the S category. So we have 3 Wellers left here. So first up, let's do Weller Full Proof. Did really well in a Weller Blind. This is just like creme brulee. You know, you burn the brown sugar on a creme brulee, you crack it with a spoon, you get that kind of like vanilla custard creme fraiche. You get that like you get that tart, you get that brown sugar, like cracked brown sugar in there as well, so you get those burny type of char notes. And this is exactly what this is in a bottle as well, and that's why this is going into the S category. Yes, it's hard to find. MSRP, if you can find them, is around about $70, $60, but mostly in Colorado, I'm seeing like the single barrel picks of these. I rarely see Weller Full Proof in general, but what I'm finding is, or I'm hearing is that mostly people who get Weller Full Proof just get the barrel picks now, as opposed to just the regular stuff. But still, the barrel picks are great, but the regular stuff is definitely in the S category there. 2 left, and let's go with Weller Craft Your Perfect Bourbon, coming in at 47.5% ABV. I'm not sure about this one. I don't want to put it too far down, but I don't want to put it too far high up as well. I'm going to put it in the B category. So right in the middle of the road. I think it's good. It's a little bit better than okay, but it kind of, maybe I was just expecting a little bit too much with this one, which is why it's going into the B category. Not worth the chase, maybe for some folks. Probably for me, I probably wouldn't go looking for it and buying it again unless I could get it at MSRP, but definitely not worth those higher values that people tend to pay for it. That's why this is going into the B category. And then 1 left, and that is going to be Weller Single Barrel. This isn't going to be high up, folks, spoiler alert, because this reminds me more, out of all the Weller bourbons, this reminds me more of the Weller Special Reserve than it does of the other Wellers. There's just not too much going on. Maybe I just had a pretty sucky barrel, because again, it is a single barrel. But I haven't had the delight of trying other Weller single barrels, so I can only refer to the one I've tried and the one I've had in front of me here. And that's why this is going into the C category. Not worth the money, not worth the hunt, and it just fell so flat, which is a shame, because I was looking forward to this a lot and I paid a lot of money for it as well. So hopefully you enjoyed the second part of this Weller tier list here. There was a lot of bottles to get through, and yes, I had to redo the video to get the benchmark ones in, because I know you folks wanted to see that. So that's what we did. So as we drink through the world's whiskies, 1 glass at a time, cheers.